Gally. Now, Tommy Walsh, good morning to you. How you doing?
Good morning, Owen. Good morning, Ger.
You do some impressions, right? You did it. There was a famous one of you on YouTube which disappeared at one point of you doing a Cody impression.
Yeah. Depends on how many drinks you had, how good it was, I tell you that.
That was a bus journey or something, was it? Or was it an All-Ireland celebration? I was there for a while and then somebody obviously got it taken down. I don't know who.
Yeah, well, I worked very hard to get that taken down, Ger. Put it that way.
Well,
I was up early the next day.
Well, you're free to do it anytime you want. I'm just going to extend that offer to you right now. Let's talk a bit about these games of the weekend. What's the turnaround for Kilkenny actually like? What are they doing this week to try and make sure that whatever good about last week is the thing that the players will take with them, as opposed to the fact that they're tired and they've been beaten after a replay?
Yeah, I think, Jared, it's not physically at all that they need to, I suppose, look after themselves. It's mentally. It's after a loss like that, because they put so much into the first day with the chance of winning, that I suppose they will look back with kind of regret and disappointment that they aren't straight through to the All-Ireland semi-final. So I think what Brian Cody has to do this week is just recharge the guys mentally and freshen it up. I think if Kilkenny are to win, like Brian has a record of changing around the team drastically after either a loss or a draw since '99, since he took over. I mentioned before the last day, like he had an average of 3 after every drawn game, and I'd say it's even bigger after a loss. Changes on the team, and that's just subs coming in. He also changes around the structure of the team. So I think it will be, we've seen, I think it's 9 out of 10 teams that played 3 weeks in a row in the round robin series lost. So that will tell you that history is going against Kilkenny this weekend. So if I'm part of that set-up, I think the whole thing is we need to freshen it up, because it's not physically. Like you see in the World Cup, how guys can go 3 or 4 days after and they play 5, 6, 7 games. So I think for these guys, it's mentally. So I just freshen up the whole team, make a few position switches. For the only one reason is just to freshen it up, not any other reason. And I think if they do that, they'll have a great chance. But I think if they go back out with similar enough old team, just 1 or 2 changes, I think they'll be under pressure with fatigue, mental fatigue.
Yeah, the other thing is that we don't really know where Limerick are at. It's been a while since we've kind of seen them play a match of this intensity. Obviously, they had a run out in the meantime, and that was kind of a bit of target practice for them and will be useful in some ways. So there's a bit of an unknown quantity about them outside of Munster this season. And it's a very unusual situation. Obviously, like these two teams, they don't meet that often. Obviously, there was the famous All-Ireland semi-final, is that 07? Is that as far back as that? So it's been a while, really, since we've had too many meaningful games between them. Like, it's not an easy game for either side to prepare for in that respect.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that would be going for Kilkenny, is there's going to be massive pressure on Limerick. Like this is the team, like I always spoke about before with the Kilkenny guys. They were very lucky to win All Ireland in their first few years. So 19, 20, 21 years of age winning All Ireland, it didn't matter what happened after that. You had that confidence that you could do it on the biggest stage of all. Well, this Limerick team should have beaten Kilkenny in All Park last year, albeit they were very young and there's probably a few different changes. This year then, they came out of the blocks. They were the team of the summer, really. As far as the Munster round robin series were going, they're talking about being Munster champions, the team that could put it up potentially to Galway in the All-Ireland series. Suddenly in the last game against Clare, who might, the week before, if that got beaten by Tipperary, mightn't have even made the top 3. Suddenly they beat Limerick and they're out. They don't even make a Munster final. So now this is their first big game since. And like if they lose this, well, then that will kind of be, it'll be a scar, a mental scar. Now, it's not going to stop him, but it'll be a mental scar for him next year. When you go back training in the winter, you'll be saying, no matter what happens, the early part of the year, like they already won Division 1B as well. So whatever happens then, if they get beaten, say, this Sunday, they'll go be in training, they'll be doubting themselves. When it comes to it, can we actually do it? Towards if they beat Kilkenny this weekend, they're in an All-Ireland semi-final. So that's progress straight away. These guys, they're All-Ireland under-21 champions 2015, 2017. They've won club championships, club All-Irelands. But this actual inter-county senior team haven't. So to win this weekend, there's massive pressure on them. And that's the one thing you will see. Like these tense games, there's no full flow out of a team when you're playing a game like this. So that's the one thing that I suppose a massive challenge for this Limerick team.
Yeah, Brendan Cummins would go along with that. He was saying in the Irish Independent this morning that it's going to haunt them for years if they lose at the weekend, which is putting a huge amount of pressure on this team. But you're right in what you say, and like to a certain extent, could you compare it to Galway at the weekend? Because it kind of felt like the ghosts of Kilkenny's past had been exercised by Galway at the weekend to hold off that Kilkenny comeback. And it seems like a weird thing to say, given they are favourites for the All-Ireland, given they are All-Ireland champions. But this is the extent of the shadow that Kilkenny have had on everybody else. And to lose one could mean years and years of pain, like it seemed to have been the case for Galway over the last few years.
Yeah, Owen, and I think if you go back and look at Galway last Sunday, when it was really put up to them, where did it draw the courage from? Where did it draw the bravery to go on and just stick at it? It was from their champions. They know that on the biggest stage of all, they've done it. They were under serious pressure in last year's All-Ireland semi-final, and they pulled it out of the bag in the last 10 minutes. They were under serious pressure. Like, there was only 3 points in it, I think, with a few minutes to go in the All-Ireland final last year. So they know that they've done it on the biggest stage of all. There's different individual players for that Galway team stood up at different times last year. So it wasn't just a one-man show. So that meant they could all draw upon that experience this year when they played Kilkenny. You go back to the 2015 All-Ireland final, the 2012 All-Ireland final. When the pressure came on, Galway's body language just, it was terrible. It went down. They looked like guys that didn't want to be there. They were praying for the final whistle. Towards last Sunday, there was different guys stepping up all over the field. Cathal Mannion, Joe is having probably the summer of his career, I'd say, at the moment. He's really, really going well. And just different guys at different stages. So I think that came from being champions. Towards this Limerick team, last year they were beaten by Kilkenny, and they felt, if you listen to any of their interviews, they felt they should have took Kilkenny last year in Nolan Park. So that will, until they get over the line, like, they won't have that experience of winning like Galway had.
Ultimately, when you look at last weekend as well, and when Limerick looked at that game to analyse it, there was, like, putting it bluntly, there was a 15 minutes there where Galway tore Kilkenny apart. They absolutely destroyed them, and it looked like it could have been a bloodbath come the end of the game. Like, surely there's something in that Limerick can learn from. It wasn't all about Galway being amazing. There was surely chinks in the Kilkenny armour for a huge period of that opening quarter.
Yeah, and Galway probably opened them up, and that's what Limerick will probably try to do. If you see the difference between the Leinster final the first day, Kilkenny were very much a solid unit from probably half-forward line back. Last Sunday in Thurles, probably a smaller field, and Galway opened them up and gave the forwards the ball they needed. You look at the Limerick team, like, they're so exciting. You'd always know if a team has a great chance in an All-Ireland of bringing back the Lee McCarthy by their players. And, like, you go through the team, you have young Flanagan corner forward, you have Gillan full forward, you have Shane Dowling maybe to come on, you have Declan Hannon centre back, Cian Lynch midfield, all exciting players, Kyle Hayes centre forward, Garrod Hegarty, his father played in the 94-96 All-Irelands. Like, this is the next great Limerick team. Like, the last great Limerick team was that team in the mid-90s. I used to love them. They were my favourite team growing up. I could still nearly name out all the team. And they didn't get over the line. Like, there was that famous comeback by Johnny Dooley and the Offaly boys in 94. Daithí Regan was there, our own Daithí Regan. Like, this is the next great Limerick team. And I'm sure the likes of Ger Hegarty will be saying it to Garrod, like, listen, just do everything right. When the game is there to be won, just have no regrets. Go for it. Don't forget about the pressure. And that's what they'll probably have. They'll have guys talking to them of their experience back in the mid-90s. And that might help them get over the line, because this is an exciting team and they have the players all over the field. And they will try and open up this Kilkenny team because they have forwards that can blitz you. We've seen the scores that Limerick have done. They've huge scores racked up this year. We've seen then the last like, momentum is a massive thing. Like, the three you were talking about the World Cup a few minutes ago. Look at England. They won their first game 2-1, kind of a last minute goal against Tunisia. Next minute to go on and win 5 or 6-1, and suddenly they're in the World Cup semi-final. So that's momentum. Look at the Kildare footballers, Ger. Like, they hadn't won a game in months, or I think was it even 12 months. Suddenly they're in the Super 8s. Go back, Roy Keane, the great Roy Keane, when he was he got the yellow card in the Champions League final, the Champions League semi-final, was it against Juventus? and suddenly puts in the greatest performance he's ever put in because he doesn't care anymore, and he's not even thinking about football. Off he goes, and just momentum takes him to one of his greatest performances. Look at the provincial finalists in the football. 3 of them are gone. You have Cork, a shadow of themselves. Fermanagh, a shadow of themselves from the provincial championships. And Laois gone as well. So momentum is a massive thing, and that's what Limerick have going for them this Sunday.
I'm getting hammered here. I've been saying all week I don't believe in momentum, but I know what you're saying. The confidence of the teams. It's like everybody who's come on has basically called me an idiot for saying this, but that's fine.
Yeah.
I get it, Tommy. I see the point you're making.
But what is momentum really, Ger? I suppose it's confidence.
Exactly. That's my point. Is that it's the
backtracking.
It's the benefits that you get from playing well.
I didn't hear you saying that now, Ger.
That's all right.
Yeah, no.
The lads here are laughing. They're in convulsions here.
Yeah.
Okay, they're all good examples.
We're trying to think of it. What is momentum? That's what it is. It's confidence. I read somewhere during the week. I think it was Kieran Shannon in the Examiner talking about what is fitness really. Fitness is probably the ultimate confidence booster. Yeah. Because if you're doing massive amount of running, or what is it really? Because every other team is doing it, but it gives you yourself a massive confidence.
Yeah, and the belief that you're going to be able to actually get through this, which is the point you're making about Galway being able to pull on those reserves as well. Just before I ask you about the Clare game, is that St. Kieran's in the background? That's the famous black and white jersey of Kieran's.
It is the famous black and white jersey, but no, it's not Kieran's this time. That's Turlough Dahi Burke's club up in Galway. They're the Féile champions from this year, Division 1. It was on the National Féile was a few weeks ago. They're the Division 1 champions. Across the road from that's Ballygalget up and down. They won the Division 2 Camogie Féile and the Cup. And I suppose the point I'm just trying to make is we're now in the middle of the intercounty season. We're having such a great time that we could forget about the clubs again. And now is the time to sort out the club structures for next year, because we need that 50-50 that I keep talking about. Why did I put up them photos? Look at the joy in the Ballygalget. Say there's babies, there's young people, old people in them photographs. The joy a win like that brings to a whole parish. Like I was getting texts about different some of them results in the Féile. Like a whole place, whether it's 1,000 or 3,000, they go down, and like I know in Tullaroan, if we ever win a championship, whether it's from under 13 right up to adult level, they'll come down in a trailer from the church, the whole parish rallies around and they cheer them off. And like that goes on right around the country. So I suppose the point I'm trying to make is the intercounty is great. I love both of them, club and county. But let's sort out the club for next year, because we could easily forget about it, Ger.
That's the thing. The games have been so good. The championships have been so good. The matches that are left in the championship are all going to be amazing. But it would be so easy to just go, everything is grand because the top of the tree is grand. And that's not the case.
That's not the case. But we could get it. And it's up to both guys like myself and the lads in the club to drive it on from the club to the county board, and the county board to Crow Park, and the guys up there, them committees, and everyone sort this out together, because we all know that it has to be done. Like this year is one of my toughest of club hurling, because you just don't know when you're playing, and it'd be even better if you just said, right, it's starting and it'll be over in 2 months. At least you have a focus, start and an end, towards you're kind of humming and hawing the whole year this year. And don't get me wrong, I retired in 14, 15, 16 and 17 were 3 brilliant years. They were wonderful years of club hurling that I enjoyed thoroughly. This year has just been a disaster, because you just don't know when you're playing. And even we're back playing now, really kind of focused on championships because it's coming up soon, and I'm injured. So I trained for about 5 or 6 months. I never get injured really, and suddenly I'm out and they're playing matches and training, and there's big numbers down training. So just, let's keep that focus. And we all know it has to be done, but just make sure now is the time to sort it out. Have the meetings now and sort it out.
Yeah, fair enough. One quick question about the Clare Wexford game. What do you think is going to happen in this one?
Well, she have the Davy Derby, and what does the GA love better than a derby match? Like, you go through any of the counties in Ireland, when the clubs, if Tullaroan are playing Ballycallan, if Lisdowney are playing Freshford, the town teams, the Village and O'Loughlin's, say Limerick and Clare, we'll say Kilkenny and Tip. Sure, it just stirs emotions everywhere. So the Davy Derby, I can't wait for it, and I know they have no rivalry really, Wexford and Clare, but I'm sure it's going to be boil to boiling point really with Davy on the line. So I can't wait for it. I think Clare will do it, because I think, Wexford have the sweeper system, which I suppose I don't believe in. They have great players. Wexford have won a lot underage, and Rory O'Connor is a special talent, Lee Chin is a special talent, but I think if Clare can get over the disappointment of the Munster final, because I think that could take a lot out of them, and it'll be the opposite of momentum. So if Clare don't have not got over the Munster final, Wexford will win. But if Clare come to the game at all, I think they'll win.
Just one last one for me, Tommy, just from a Clare perspective. Obviously, John Conlon, if they win at the weekend, is going to be in the picture for Hurler of the Year, you'd imagine, especially to get to an All-Ireland final. He'd probably be one of the favourites. But I'm sure you saw that Sunday Independent article the week before last, where he's talking about building a house and how that's kind of forced him to take his mind off hurling to a certain extent, where he's still putting a lot of time into it, but not as time as he previously would. Like, from your own experiences, how big an advantage is that, where you've got the kind of a distraction and kind of a deliberate distraction, because sometimes it can be too much of a focus. It can get into your head a little bit too much to focus on the intercounty game.
Yeah, no, it is a great point, really. My thing, I would always love variety. So I go through times where it'd be like that, like John Conlon. You need to take your eye off the game for a while, relax, enjoy it a bit more. Suddenly you're going out then having great performances. Then you go through a bit of that for a while on, and it's funny. You change it around, right? Listen, I need to put in focus here. So you go mad the other way for a few weeks. I find there's no one way works. If you go one way for too long, you just become predictable, it becomes normal. You think you're doing the right thing and it'll just happen. Like, you'd ever hear guys, he does something one game, plays well, so he stays doing it. That only lasts so long. So my whole belief is to stay fresh. I'm a big believer in freshness. So I'd be like John Conlon, do that for a while. Suddenly when that's all done, change it around and put your focus back on hurling 24/7.
One last
so
thing.
Variety, I would believe.
Speaking of variety, Joe Canning, obviously we've seen him score sidelines all over the country. Thurles, we've seen him do it in Galway, we've seen him do it in Croke Park as well, in front of 80,000, in front of almost nobody, but never, I'd say, was there more pressure than when Prince Harry and Meghan Markle were watching yesterday. Straight over the bar. There's pictures of Meghan Markle's face. It's like, I'd say Harry was, when he saw the pictures, was a bit like, oh, she doesn't look at me like that.
Are they doing the sideline competition next week? No. I might go up. Sure, that's unreal. Pressure moment, and the big man delivers again. So he's well used to doing that up there. Fair play to him.
Yeah, a peach of a Wednesday is the line on Instagram, indeed. Tommy, enjoy the games this weekend. Thanks a million.
Thanks a million, lads. Best of luck.